Today we're going to be doing a review of Insomnia and also looking at my IMDb list, which I will also leave in the description as usual. It's early in the morning when I'm recording this, at least kind of early, and it was the first night in a while I got like 8 hours of sleep, so I think that's a good segue into the movie we're going to be talking about, which is about sleep in many ways. And as I've done before, I would like to actually start by just reading my little short review and rating here on IMDb. So, yeah, let's do that. Okay, so 9.6 out of 10. Let Me Sleep. Really surprised by this movie, a Zipper Demon classic. And what I mean by that is I just remember seeing it in the IMDb list all the time. His IMDb list, and I remember he watched this movie, so it always stuck in my head. And I recently bought it. It was like $5, so that's what I mean by this. Insomnia is really the perfect script with one of the greatest actors of all time in the lead. Directed with great talent by Christopher Nolan. Oh, before I say anything, my dog Stanley is in the room with me here, so if you hear noise, that's him. And I guess at the end of the video, I'll put a little picture or video at the end of the video. Okay, he's just messing around in my room. It's got the trademark Nolan intellect, small details hidden throughout that sometimes confuse you, but it's rewarding to work them out. And I've decided this is why I love Christopher Nolan and why he's my third favorite director. I love that his movies are really like an exercise in sort of intellect, and it challenges you and confuses you, and you have to sit with it and work it out like you would another movie for character motivation or just analyzing the themes and stuff. For Nolan, you do all that, but you also do it on a small detailed intellectual level. Remember, it's like Christopher Nolan's Space Brain. Well, this is not a Space Brain movie. It's definitely more grounded and realistic compared to something like Inception, which is just blows your mind. Or I've actually never seen Tenet, but that's supposed to be he went too far with the Space Brain. So, and then of course Memento. So this is not a Space Brain film, but it's very smart, is what I'm trying to say. And then this next part is really important. Robin Williams really took me by surprise by delivering a great performance and a great villain. The film takes its time revealing him, letting the villain's presence grow until you finally see his face. When you do, Williams doesn't let up. To me, this was an extremely realistic and believable killer, and that's a huge credit to Williams. So yeah, just shortly talking about him in this movie. We're gonna do a proper review after I'm done reading this, but I've only seen Mrs. Doubtfire and Good Will Hunting a few years ago, and he is a good actor, no doubt, but I never thought that he would be able to portray a killer so well. And I'm not saying that he's as good as Hannibal Lecter, but I definitely got Hannibal Lecter vibes from his performance, which in my opinion is a big compliment. It's a shame he was so depressed and he killed himself. He was really, really talented, and in this movie he's a really fantastic addition. And unexpected, honestly. I wouldn't expect Robin Williams to work with Christopher Nolan. Just seems so crazy. Sorry, I'm just getting my phone because I wrote some things down to talk about in the movie. Okay, but now I have that. Alright, we have to talk about the direction because that's really important to why this film is so great. It's rare that a film can capture purely visually the feelings of anxiety like this one. Not only anxiety, but sleep deprivation too. It was so realistic and believable that my heart skipped a beat a few times. That element of horror lent by the fantastic direction really elevates this film to the top tier and makes everything more tense and frightening. Also captured expertly by the direction is that awesome scene in the fog. That feeling of anxiety, the unknown, being surrounded on all sides, all sticks out as perfect. And we'll get more into that scene in the fog because, frankly, it's like kind of like just a masterpiece of a scene. There's a few scenes in this, like there's the scene in the fog and then the scene on the ferry with the villain that probably could be considered a masterpiece. Just like perfect, and really touching. And then it has really the perfect ending, which I kind of felt like it was like wrapping a present in a bow. It was so nice. It was "Let Me Sleep" as Will Dormer, who is played by Al Pacino's character, dies. It was very beautiful. And then I said, one of the best new movies. Oh, sorry. That should be one of the best new movies I've seen in a while. And what I mean by new is like something that's not being rewatched. The other one that I would say is one of the best new movies I've seen, and I'm pretty sure I did a video on this, was this. This movie I really love. And I know maybe you think that 9.6 is a bit high for this film, but I completely disagree. And I don't just give out like that high of a score. I think this rating is insanely low. And I think this rating is insanely low, the 77%. Like, this is more accurate. Like, this is a fair score, the critic score. And yeah, I really love this film, and it shockingly, I never expected it, but it did get a spot on my top 50 towards the very end. And we'll be talking about that. This is the one where it was between, like, I haven't seen Departed in a bit, and I think if I watch Departed in a bit, it will probably be like up here somewhere, because that movie's really incredible, but I don't know exactly where it goes, but it's really good. But for now, it's just kind of here as a placeholder. But I know Insomnia is like right next to AI. They're both really good, but I think I prefer AI a bit better. And the newest addition is I moved Deathly Hallows in between the first and second Lord of the Rings. I don't know. It could be higher than two, like one higher before Two Towers. I'm not sure, but I just did that. Other than that, my list is pretty much the same. I'll put a link in the description. But let's get into an actual let's get into a review here. Let's talk about the actors first. Like I said, Al Pacino is just really perfect. Where's Robin Williams? Am I blind? I don't know why he's not listed in the cast, which is really strange. I don't know why he's not listed here, but he's just missing. So Al Pacino gives like a really top tier performance. He was so like believable in the role, and he kind of had this accent that I really loved. This guy was a little bit like not that impressive, but he died early on, and we'll get to that. Hilary Swank was good. She was kind of like she kind of reminds me of like Natalie Portman a bit. She's quite a cute actress. I don't think I've ever seen any of her movies. Yeah, I haven't seen any of these. So this was my first movie with her, and she was actually quite good. And then we gotta talk about Robin Williams, who, in my opinion, great villain and a really great performance. I see Oscar noms. Did it get any? Yeah, okay. I did not even... Did it not even get an Oscar nomination? Sorry, that's my dog. He's coughing. He's got like kennel cough from... He came from Korea. So he was on a plane. Let's get into... That's crazy. No Oscar nominations. It's just ridiculous, frankly. But who cares, really? They're wrong all the time. Stanley, come on. Film begins with an opening title and credits showing shots of white fabric of a person's clothes being crimsoned with blood, purposely applied by an unseen figure in a flashback to an earlier event, interlaced with overhead shots of the Alaskan frontier. Okay, I think I'm going to let my dog out. He's coughing a bunch. Stanley, come on. Alright. I'll let him out. So we can get back and not be distracted. This is a really beautifully directed intro. The shots of the Alaskan frontier are like really, really gorgeous. And then the kind of weird, enigmatic blood interlaced into that was really cool. Weary detective Will Dormer is seen seated in a charter plane arriving in a small town called Nightmute, Alaska, alongside his younger partner, Detective Happy Eckhart, known as Hap in the film. Upon leaving the plane, they are met by a beaming young detective, Ellie Burr, who is a self-confessed fan of Dormer's earlier investigations and work, much to Eckhart's annoyance. Upon arriving at the station, Dormer, Burr, and Eckhart look over the body of a 17-year-old Kay Connell, who they sent from Los Angeles. That is not how you spell Los Angeles. To assist the local police in their investigation at the request of an old friend, Dormer's police chief, Nyback. Okay, so I like this scene a lot where they examine the body. It does a lot of things early on. So when they first arrive, there's this other cop, the local cop, who's like, you can just see the report rather than look at the body. And Dormer like insists, like, no, he wants to see the body, which starts this little like theme, which we'll get into later. So they go see the body, and immediately like Dormer picks up stuff that the report didn't. And he basically sees that the murderer was like respectful to the body. He washed her, and he also clipped her nails, which they didn't write down in the report because basically the ends of the nails didn't have paint on them, which means like she painted it herself, but he cut it after, which is something a woman probably wouldn't do. So he knows that whoever did this was respectful to the body. But there's also this like really good line, and there's some really amazing lines in this movie. I don't remember exactly how it goes, but he said something like the killer like didn't blink, like he went to the finish line and didn't blink, and that means like he's going to do this again because he didn't freak out when he killed the woman. He was very calm. He like washed her body. His heart didn't skip a beat. He didn't blink, and that means they gotta catch him because he's probably gonna try it again, which I thought was really interesting. Like, and it makes sense how they deduced that. So this is another great scene. They go to her house, the girl that was killed, named Kay, and there's like a photo of the two friends, and like half of it's been like ripped off, and he looked in the trash and it was another girl, like her friend, so that's a little sus. And he goes into her closet and notices like she has like one really expensive dress and everything else is like really cheap. So he's like, no, her mom can't buy this. Does she have rich uncles? Does she have a rich father? A rich stepfather? And then he finds like a piece of jewelry in the shape of a heart, and he deduces that like, yeah, she probably had some other guy, and it likely isn't her boyfriend Randy, because he's just in high school. And then he's like, let's go to the school, but it's 10 at night, despite being as bright as day, which starts this main sort of recurring problem of insomnia, which starts to develop. So they go back to like the hotel, which has a restaurant, and they sit down to order food. Eckhart and Dormer engage in a discussion which soon becomes hostile as Eckhart reveals that back in LA, Dormer is under investigation by internal affairs by using questionable evidence to convict a criminal, which he may or may not have done. And this starts another, one of the main themes of the movie. This is the main seeds of it. I'll get more into that later. But this scene is really good, like, and it shows like Dormer is under a lot of stress from this investigation, and he basically leaves the table and like isn't willing to speak with his partner, and like the waitress / owner of the hotel sees this. Eckhart tells Dormer once the case is over, he'll testify against his partner in exchange for immunity, despite Dormer protesting that many criminals he helped bring down can be freed from their sentences if their cases were reopened. Dormer expresses that no matter what he has done, it was for the good of the people. So this character is like this, he's a good cop in my opinion. We'll get more into that, but he's done things that, you know, are not savory. He's done things to put certain people away that didn't follow the law, but he sort of did what he thought was right at the time for the good of the people. And he's kind of like an ends justify the means guys, but the means or the ends are always in the good of the community. They're not to service himself or anything like that. He really thinks like he's doing the right thing when he bends the rules. So this starts that little arc. Eckhart sticks to his guns, however, and remains unshaken. Dormer leaves in a huff as the hotel manager / waitress, Rachel, arrives. Rachel from freaking Dark Knight, stating that he has lost his appetite. Okay, there's a little detail here that I think this is just because I'm such a retard with The Dark Knight and I've seen it like 30 times, but there's a line in The Dark Knight and a line in this that I thought was a reference. So in this movie, he says like, isn't IA, Internal Affairs, just about playing golf with the mayor? And then in the courtroom scene with Harvey Dent, the mobster, Carmine Falcone, says like to Harvey, and he was like, doesn't DA just mean you play golf with the mayor? It's like the same line basically, and I thought that might be a reference to this film. But see, this is just like autism talking. It's just because I've seen the movie 30 times. And I actually watched it recently, and it's hard to say how great that film is. It's really like quite perfect in every way. And yeah, for some reason, it doesn't matter how many times I watch it, like, it doesn't get old, which is really amazing. Oh, it's like Beats, it never gets old. That's what it was. That's how good that movie is. Okay. The next day, Dormer connects with Burr. So Burr is the female directive, Ellie Burr, and is charmed by her interests and aspirations as a detective. Sorry, give me 1 second. See, I'm just checking to make sure we're recording. I have this paranoia that, like, I'm not recording sometimes and I'm wasting my time. But yeah, look at that. From bad experiences, I mean, sometimes that's happened to me where I think I'm recording and I waste a bunch of time and I have to redo the video, so just gotta check every once in a while. Anyway, the next day, Dormer connects with Ellie Burr and is charmed by her interests and aspirations. She's very upbeat and positive, and she's sort of, she's untainted and unweathered. She's not a hardened cop. Dormer and Eckhart pull Randy out of class and interrogate him. So Randy's her boyfriend, the girl that was killed. And this is a really incredible scene. And these are the things in this movie that just are like top tier and don't reflect its rating. And I'm just shocked that like it's 7.2 on IMDb. Like when you see scenes like this. So they're sitting in an empty classroom. You also get a shot of Tanya, her friend, who seems concerned that Randy's being pulled out of class. But for now, we're just Dormer and Randy are in a room, and he lights up a cigarette, which I love because it's like showing immediately that Randy doesn't care about what's happening because he's in front of cops lighting up a cigarette as a minor in a classroom where he's not supposed to, in an empty classroom. And then Dormer's like, he knows about Randy's abusive relationship, that he beat her up prior to her murder because there were old bruises on her. And that he knows that Kay was seeing someone else, who Randy confesses that Kay was secretive about. This doesn't describe the scene well. What really happens is like Randy is smoking and then like flips out and is like, what the fuck do you know? And he's like being really disrespectful. And like only for a split second, Dormer is taken aback, but he immediately like pulls the kid's desk towards him, takes the cigarette out of his hand and throws it away. And it's just like, it's such a good scene because it shows, it doesn't tell. It shows that like Dormer isn't gonna be bullied by like some kid with an anger issue, and he like has experience with this. But it also shows that he's fair because he's not like really accusing Randy of killing this guy or this girl, sorry. So yeah, he pulls him close and he gets the kid to admit that like he tried really hard to get the name of this guy, but he couldn't. So that's the end of that scene. Dormer looks over Kay's possession and sees that she's collected many novels from a certain author. Okay, but this is missing a huge part. What basically happens is they find her school bag in like this area by this cabin. And they find a few things. They find her diary, they find a book from an author, and they find a bunch of other crap, but they like look into everything. But at this point, like there are cops on the way to go search this cabin. But like another scene which shows Dormer's experience, but also his unconventional style. He's like, no, don't search the cabin. Just put out a message on the radio that we're looking for the bag, and anybody that finds it will turn it in. Essentially saying to the guy who owns the cabin that they don't know where the bag is, and if he returns the cabin, he'll get the bag, he'll get a reward. Essentially, they're baiting him. And then Eckhart's like, I don't know if... Dormer's like, I don't know if this is right. Just because you pick up a bag doesn't make you a murderer. So he's a little unconventional, but he's also pretty smart. And he's willing to do whatever it takes. And Eckhart sort of like jumps in and like reassures him, I think, or something like that. And Dormer explodes on him and is like, what the fuck do you care? Because he's going to testify against him. He doesn't feel like his partner anymore. He's very hostile towards him. In front of everybody, he does this. Now, this scene is like a masterpiece coming up. They basically go to the cabin, stake it out. The guy comes, but you can't see him. He's like in a raincoat. He has a hood on. They try to use a megaphone, but it alerts him. Then a chase ensues. They go through the cabin. There's a tunnel into this area with loads of fog. And words won't do it justice, but this scene is really fantastic. It's directed really, really incredibly. Like I said, that feeling of the unknown, the feeling of being surrounded, the feeling of anxiety are all here. And he accidentally shoots his partner in a really horrific scene. And he picks up the murderer's gun that he dropped too. And the cop, his partner that he murdered, even more horrifically, thinks that he did it on purpose, even though he couldn't see him. And he's like, you did this, you tried to kill me. And it's a really sad and disturbing and horrific concept. And Dormer's like, struggling, and he's trying to stop the bleeding, and he dies. And then he screams like, man down, man down. The scene ends. And then at the police station, Dormer doesn't say that he killed his partner for obvious reasons. Like, obviously it was an accident, and he's not going to go to jail for accidentally killing his partner because there was no visibility. But also Dormer is like, he really values his reputation, but beyond that, obviously, he feels very guilty and has a lot of shame, whether rightly or wrongly, about killing his partner, because that's a huge thing. Accidentally killing your friend and your partner is like, obviously he doesn't want people to know, because he doesn't even want to believe that that's true for himself. Why would he want other people to know? So it's understandable why he's saying the killer did it. But this is the first, moment where you see him doing some questionable things while on this job. And that he's also under internal affairs investigation, so he knows IA is gonna fuck him over for it. Dormer does not tell the authorities that he carries with him the .38 caliber pistol that the killer dropped. Ellie Burr gets moved on to Eckert's murder case, much to Dormer's increased nervousness. And this is the end of the whole sequence, a really fantastic scene where he calls up his wife and tells her about her husband's death, and he's clearly having PTSD because there's flashes of him killing his partner while he's talking to his wife. And his wife Trish says, like, you find this man and you kill him. You don't capture him. You kill him. Now he's suffering from an inability to sleep due to the never-ending brightness of the sky, as well as the guilt over killing Eckert. Dormer, however, loses his cool when confronting the wounded officer. He tells the officer that the killer of Kay Connell is the only one to blame for what happened. I actually really like this scene. So, this scene, in the hospital, because another cop was shot actually by the killer, and the guy's like feeling very guilty because he's like, if I hadn't accidentally turned on the megaphone, it wouldn't have alerted him, and then none of this would have happened. Ecker would be alive, etc. We would have captured the killer. So and Dormer like soothes his guilt, and he's like, at the end of the day, the responsibility for all this stuff that we've done wrong subtly implying that he's killed his partner by accident, lies at the feet of the guy that like beat up this young girl to death. And it made me think, and this starts an arc about people who are in the field on the ground, in this case being cops, and people who are sitting behind a desk and get paid to criticize without taking like one iota of the risk or the responsibility or the dangers or the ignorance of being out there with a killer that you don't know. So yeah, and it leads to like discussions about war and like civilian casualties and collateral damage. And at the end of the day, the responsibility is on the people that started it, frankly. And it's a good scene. Dormer is haunted by visions of the disappointed Eckhart watching him from a distance as Burr's team investigates the area, finding a .38 caliber bullet in the rocks. By the way, so the guy that gets shot in the leg, the bullet wasn't in there. It went straight through. So they just found the bullet, meaning they will be able to see if the same gun was used in both the killer of Eckhart and the shooter of the other cop. So that's a problem, because they're going to know that Dormer shot him. So that's a problem. This is the scene that continues on the arc of being in the field versus being on the desk, being at the desk. Dormer returns to the hotel where Rachel gives him a phone, telling him another directive was on the line. Dormer answers and discovers it is another investigator at Eternal Affairs who will testify against Dormer once he returns to LA, and states he would like to see Dormer's report on Eckhart's death, essentially saying that you killed him and you're trying to hide it. Worn down by physical tiredness, stress, and guilt, as well as the concern of being discovered, Dormer verbally assaults the caller as Rachel looks on in concern. That's not a fair description of what actually happened, so I'm going to read you the quote. And it's a really good quote and very true. Okay, let me, where are quotes? Okay, here you go. I know that, okay, it's not even here. Will Dormer, this is so sus. He says balls in it, okay? Sorry guys, this is a little bit crazy. I don't know, I can't find it. Anyway, so I don't know where this line is, but essentially he also says contempt, I think. I don't know. I guess it's just not there. But he's on the line with this cop, and he's like, the guy's accusing him of killing his partner with no proof. And, Dormer rightly says, like, you sit behind a desk all day and, like, criticize men like me, men who go out and risk their lives every day, not always knowing everything about what room you're going into, and there's bound to be, catastrophes every once in a while, and you criticize me from behind a desk, and at the end of the day, you're just like a ballless wannabe cop that couldn't go out there and have the responsibility of maybe being killed or maybe making a mistake, and yet you criticize me like you're God, or like you act holier than thou, like your hands are clean, Your hands are clean because you refuse to take the responsibility and take the risk. And that's a great scene. And it's not fair to say that what does it say? Oh, Dormer verbally assaults. I mean, yeah, he did, but also he told him the truth, that he's just a guy that sits behind a desk and just criticizes people all day. People that actually do the hard work. It reminded me of a line. This is an old memory, but it's from Few Good Men. And I remember talking about it with Zipper Demon about the last monologue of Jack Nicholson's character, where, the "you can't handle the truth" monologue, and he's like, I send men up on that wall every day to guard your reality, or something like that. And I remember Zipper Demon told me, in that moment you kind of actually understand that the people that actually go out there and do the actual work in the field will always be superior and sort of more legitimate than the people behind the desk who just criticize and act holier than thou. Obviously, that movie, the general character is definitely more of a villain, but he also has justifications. But Dormer is more of a hero who does dirty things. So it's a bit different, but it reminded me of that line where the general in Few Good Men is like, I send men out there on that wall to guard your reality, or your sort of the lie you tell yourself about how everything's pure and pretty. He shields you from the reality that people are savages, and that if they don't guard from that reality, then little lawyers like Tom Cruise in that movie wouldn't even have a right to exist. And similarly, Dormer guards our reality, going out in the field, sometimes making mistakes, but nonetheless justified. Okay. Bro, this is gonna take a long time. Holy shit. The next day at Kay's funeral, Dormer notices Tanya and Randy together, and they're clearly in a romantic... so the girl's best friend and the girl's boyfriend are they seem to be in a romantic relationship at her funeral, which is pretty sus. So Dormer offers Tanya a ride home in his truck, to which she agrees. As they're driving, Dormer attempts to question Tanya, only for her to try to seduce him. However, he frightens her into compliance by driving on the wrong side of the road, which was a great scene, and nearly getting totaled by an oncoming semi-truck. So he's playing the bad cop now. Good cop, bad cop. He's scaring the crap out of her to get answers. And he brings her to a dump, and she's like, where the hell am I? And he was like, this is the dump where your best friend's naked body was dumped among garbage, and that you seem to not care at all because you're with her boyfriend now and you're disgracing her. And Tanya starts crying and saying that he's Randy and her have always been kind of cheating, but also that the reason that Randy doesn't have an alibi on Friday is because she didn't want to say that Randy and her were together that night. But then also she says that the other man's name was I think Brody or Brady, and that's not her real name, but that's what Kay would refer to him as. And Dormer goes back to the station, and he finds the book that was in her backpack, and it was called, I think, A.J. Brody or Brady Mysteries, and the author is Walter Finch, a local author. So That's pretty obvious. Dormer receives um, Dormer receives a call during this time and deduces that the caller is the killer, Finch, while he's looking through her bag, which is a pretty great scene. Dormer finds Finch's apartment in the town of Umkumut. After appeasing Finch's barking dogs, now this is a very clever scene. So the guy Finch put a piece of paper in his door, so when the lock was picked, the paper fell out, so he would know if someone's in his apartment. So while Dormer's in there, he's looking around for a bit, but then the dogs go to the door. Finch is right outside, but he sees there's no paper, so a chase ensues between them two. There's a great scene like on a river with these, cut logs in the water, and Finch almost drowns. He escapes and returns to Finch's apartment. While waiting, the phone rings, and Finch was like taunting him, and he's like, make yourself at home. That water's got to be cold. The shower is there, and there's some cream towels under the sink or something like that. And he finally answers the call, and he also plants Finch's .38 pistol in the vent to frame him. Ellie Burr tells Dormer that she has deduced that Finch is a suspect because the girl had a signed copy of the same author in her apartment. Also at this time, Dormer on the phone had told him to meet Finch on a ferry, and the reason Dormer is doing this is because Finch said, like, I saw you shoot your partner, and I know you're covering up about it. So he's basically blackmailing him and saying, like, you bring me in, I tell the world about what you did. This is another scene I consider as a masterpiece. They spar, and Finch is like saying that he didn't mean to kill her, but he's very unsettling about it. Doesn't seem true at all. And he keeps trying to equate his killing of Kay to what's it called? Dormer's killing of his partner, which is bullshit, but he's using it to like, oh, we're not so different, you and I. But he's lying. That's not true. And then Finch talks about all this stuff, like he's obsessed with cops and he thinks cops are amazing. That's why he writes about cops. Finch tries to appeal to Dormer by saying Kay's death was all an accident, just like his partner. And Dormer doesn't buy into his pleas. However, Finch explains that Dormer has blood on his hands as well, and he's saying they're both accidents. Finch appeals to Dormer's original beliefs that his job and actions have made people safe. He's saying that basically, if we frame this on another person, your reputation will be intact. All the killers you put away will stay put away. So he's making a Machiavellian, like, ends justify the means argument, which is sort of pushing Dormer's worldview about doing whatever it takes to its breaking point. Like, are they really going to pin this on this innocent kid, Randy? I mean, he's not innocent, as Finch says. Like, he did beat up his girlfriend, but he's certainly innocent of killing her. Dormer agrees temporarily to Finch's terms and warns him of the interrogation coming up. But Dormer is basically counting on his apartment being searched and the gun being found, and that destroying Finch's credibility. So no matter what he says about, oh, this man killed his partner, it'll fall on deaf ears if the cops find that gun, naturally. So he wants it to play out. So he gets off the ferry and shows that he's been recording the whole conversation. He screams wild card, like in a detective novel. Dormer returns to his hotel, where he has a vision that Eckhart clearly, that he saw Eckhart clearly and shot him on purpose. So he's like doubting his own morality here. He doesn't know if he wanted to kill him or not, because while he's sad about killing his partner and guilty, it also ended the investigation against him. Finch calls up to know the truth of to discuss their further machinations. Dormer insists that they should trust each other. Dormer will need to know the truth about how Finch killed Kay. This scene is also an incredible scene that it was so realistic. Like, hearing how Finch killed the girl, like, basically the girl started laughing at him and he just like lost control and started hitting her. And then the girl started screaming, so he started like choking her. And that just felt to me like very real, and like that he has a really fragile ego. Like, just people laughing at him just like sends him into a rage, and he just like went crazy on her. It's very disturbing though. Finch tried to calm her and just lost hold of himself and kissed her. Kay laughed at him. Yeah, striked her. He lost self-control and beat her to death, knowing there's no turning back. Finch breaks down slightly and cries a little, before coming to a form of peace from his confession, telling Dormer, "I will be able to sleep now." Finch offers to hear Dormer's confession of killing Eckhart, but Dormer hangs up, knowing he must keep his wits about him. This is another time where, like, the killer Finch is trying to, like, equalize the two things they did, like beating a girl to death and accidentally shooting your partner who you can't see in the fog, like acting like those are the same thing. So he's trying to, like, pretend like they're both evil people, but they're definitely not. But you also, like, see, like, okay, Dormer did do something bad, and it's stressing him out, and he doesn't know if he did it on purpose. Okay, Dormer meets with Ellie Burr, who notices his degradation and tells him, in an effort to boost his morale, a good cop can't sleep because he's missing a piece of the puzzle, and a bad cop can't sleep because his conscience won't let him. In other words, it's like Two-Face, two sides of Dormer. He's a good cop, that he's missing the piece of the puzzle, the murderer, can't really turn him in yet. And you could say he's a bad cop because he has this guilty conscience that he killed this man, even if it was by accident. Finch is interrogated at police quarters, a great scene again. Dormer loses his temper, finding himself unable to agree to Finch's plans to frame Randy. So this is the good cop coming in. During the interrogation, Finch pushes blame upon Randy, stating that Finch is like pushing blame upon Randy, saying he's abusive, and that the kid was hiding a .38 pistol in a heating vent, subtly revealing to Dormer that he knows that he hid that in his apartment. At this point, Dormer loses it because he knows that the guy has planted this at Randy's apartment. And he's like, "You son of a bitch, you just wanted to, sleep with this 17-year-old girl. You're a terrible person." And at this point, Dormer, just leaves, has to go find this gun at Randy's place because the cops are going there with a search warrant. They're going to find the gun. They're going to arrest this kid for, false reasons. And Finch will walk free. So at this point, the only missing things are the girl's dress and this gun. And the gun is about to be found at Randy's apartment, which will end this whole thing. Yeah, and then they find it, so Randy's arrested. Dormer meets with Finch, and Finch explains that Dormer is trying to reveal Finch's machinations to the cops. This is a great scene where basically they meet and like Dormer's like, no, I'm done. I'm telling them everything. I'm telling them I shot the guy. I'm telling him you planted the gun, etc., etc. And then there's this great scene where Dormer loses it again and he puts a gun in Finch's face and he's like, will this be an accident too? Like, and then Finch says if you want it to be. Like what he did to the girl, he claims he accidentally killed her, but he definitely didn't. Dormer's conscience wins over, and he leaves Finch alone. The two leave, and Dormer sinks back into wariness. Burr searches the woods and finds a 9mm shell casing, which conflicts with the .38 caliber bullet Dormer planted in the evidence. We didn't really go over that. Unfortunately, this summary didn't talk about it. She asked Dormer for his opinion, only for him to state that the case is closed. And as Dormer prepares to leave, Burr embraces him and sort of feels by his back, and she feels that he has a 9mm gun concealed in his clothes, his backup gun. So she knows that he killed his partner. Finch invites Burr, unbeknownst to Dormer, to his lake house, where he says he has evidence of Randy's abuse through Kay's letters that she sent to Finch. A careless and distraught Dormer returns to his hotel room and he's haunted by memories of killing his partner. Dormer arranges his luggage to leave and tries to get one night of some sleep. He's been up for like 6 nights, only for the bright sun to keep shining. So he tries to push a bunch of furniture in front of the window. Rachel arrives and says, they're complaining about noise. And this is where Dormer explains his backstory, why he's being investigated, and one of the most beautiful scenes of the whole movie. Rachel rearranges the room as a weary and defeated Dormer sits on the bed and explains that a pedophile named Wayne Dobbs kidnapped a young boy and held him captive in his apartment, where he made him do things, before hanging the boy to death after 3 days of molestation. The case was about to be thrown out, as through coincidence there was not enough evidence to convict Dobbs. So essentially, this is a very disturbing story about this guy that kidnaps a boy and tortures him and does all this other horrific things. And then he even hung the boy, but he didn't do it properly, so the boy just hung there and died from shock. So it's a really disgusting crime. And then Dormer explains that there wasn't enough evidence in this case. He explains that the judge could not understand a killer, and that the jury doesn't know what child killers look like, and they wouldn't know. They would find reasonable doubt because you have to have a unanimous jury to convict. So there would be one guy that may not see unanimous guilt. So Dormer took matters into his own hands and spread the boy's blood samples all over Dobbs' apartment. Dobbs was convicted and killed for his crimes, death penalty, and since then Dormer has been under investigation from Internal Affairs for his actions. Rachel listens in silence, looking at Dormer with concern. Dormer concludes that Hap Eckert spearheaded the investigation against Dormer. Dormer concludes his story by saying, "The ends justify the means." Upon hearing Dormer's confession, Rachel states that she is in no position to judge him, explaining that she came to Alaska to escape her life earlier. Dormer begs for her opinion of his actions, and she replies, "I guess it's about what you thought was right at the time and what you're willing to live with." Dormer hears this and comes to a peace of mind. And he washes his hands, looks at Rachel napping on the bed. But how beautiful is this scene? It fits perfectly with that arc of Dormer's character. Ends justify the means, and also this. He begs for her opinion. For once, he's willing to let someone who's not in the field judge him, like a moment of vulnerability. Then she says, I guess it's what you thought was right at the time and what you're willing to live with. Perfectly summarizing this whole theme of the movie about doing what you think is right, but living with the consequences after. It's really just this beautiful character arc. So Burr is on the road to Finch's lake house at Lake Kugun, where Finch has not yet fabricated the letters he claimed to have received, and asks fearfully. I don't know what that means. He deduces that she has realized Dormer's hand in the death of Eckert. No, that's not really what happens. No, he invites her to he invites her to his lake house. And basically they're up there, and it's kind of like that scene in Silence of the Lambs where Clarice sees the butterfly, the moth landing, and then she knows Buffalo Bill is Buffalo Bill, the killer. In this scene, he opens the drawer and she sees the dress in a piece of plastic bag. So she goes to take out her gun, and he knocks her unconscious. This is just skipping a bunch of stuff. So Dormer went back to his apartment, searched his apartment, and found the address to his lake house. Then he called the police station, and he finds out that Ellie has left. So he's like, knows that she's going into danger. So he gets on the road and quick goes. And there's this amazing scene, sleep deprivation, perfect direction, where he almost crashes into a semi-truck. It's so realistic and good. Dormer holds Finch at gunpoint, and Dormer is suffering hallucinations from lack of sleep, and Finch takes advantage of this, beating him to the floor savagely. Burr intervenes, and Finch retreats into his fishing shack. Burr holds Dormer at gunpoint, stating that she knows he killed Eckert, and Dormer confesses. And this is a beautiful scene, and she's like, did you mean to kill him? And he's like, I don't know anymore. I thought in the fog that I couldn't see him, but when I went up to him, he was afraid of me, so I don't know. And honestly, this scene, it got a tear out of me, I'm not gonna lie. It's so heartbreaking that, he accidentally did this very, very sad thing, but then he was denied even having a moment with his partner, being like comforting him in his death, because the cop said that he thought he did it, and that his friend, his partner, was actually afraid of him in that moment. And it's just horrific, and he doesn't even know if he meant to do it or not anymore. He's so consumed with guilt that he can't even think properly about it. At this point, gunfire rings out, and basically Ellie takes his gun and starts shooting, but Dormer goes to the fishing cabin where the shotgun is being shot by Finch, and he goes up behind him. They both accidentally shoot each other. Then Finch falls into like this fishing hole, and he lifelessly goes under the lake and disappears. I'd say like there's some ambiguity if he died. It's like 95% he died, but I think there's possible he survived. Dormer watches the dead body sink below the frigid waters to the darkness. Dormer staggers out onto the dock, where Burr arrives and tries to help him, knowing that he is dying, she takes out the 9mm casing, saying she knows what Dormer did, but he did not mean to shoot his partner, no matter what he says about not knowing anymore, and that nobody has to know. She prepares to throw the casing into the lake, but Dormer stops her, insisting that the world needs to know the truth and that Burr should do the right thing, instructing her to don't lose your way. This is such a beautiful thing. It's the anxiety of this movie perfectly through the direction and the character arc. It's about one bad act leading to another, even if the bad act is reasonable at the time, that it'll always catch up with you. So in his last moments, he sort of gives advice, like one mentor to another, to like an apprentice kind of. He says, like, don't lose your way. And she doesn't, and he dies peacefully in her arms, saying, let me sleep. 6 days of not being able to sleep, and then he finally goes to the ultimate sleep. The film ends with Ellie Burr standing on the dock after placing the casing back in the evidence bag. She looks determined, looking down with reverence at her dead hero, who died preventing her from making the same mistakes of doing the wrong things for the right reasons as he had done. After the end credits, the film's Insomnia appears once more before fading to darkness. So, a really, really fantastic movie that completely took me by surprise. I assumed that due to the rating of this film, like, it would be a very good film, underrated, but not nearly as much as it actually is. Yeah, I just always remember this film, seeing it in Zipper Demon's IMDb list. Like, I would always see it over and over, and I kind of always hesitated watching it for that reason, but I finally did. The reason I hesitated watching it isn't because, it's just, I don't know why, but I just feel, I don't even know, but I just, like, have a mental block about I guess I wanted to watch it with him. I don't know. Whatever it is. I don't know everything about how I feel. It's like Will Dormer in this. He doesn't really know exactly what he means to do. But the truth is, he didn't mean to do that. So I guess in that same way, I don't know why I didn't want to watch it for a long time, but I finally did. And, yeah, I loved it. And it's another Zipper Demon classic, as I said in my review. Let me make sure I'm still recording. Yeah, so as I said in my review here, Zipper Demon classic, that's what I meant by it. And I actually do remember when we first started making our list that this movie was in his, like, top 25 or something. So he has good taste, always. And like I said, a very underrated film. I'm gonna watch more Christopher Nolan's. I want to watch The Following, this movie, which is his first film, which I'm sure is underrated as well. It's only an hour, 9 minutes. But yeah, if you love movies that are like perfectly directed, but not only that, like stylistically directed with that feeling of anxiety and sort of guilt, PTSD, sleep deprivation, all like being a major force for why this film is great. If you love great actors, if you love a great story, a story that perfectly, wraps itself as a present with that last line, let me sleep. And even the line where he says, I don't even know anymore. Like, if he shot his partner, it's like so beautiful. Like, a man's, a few minutes before his death is like, he's just like worn out. He just doesn't know. and he's just horrified that his partner thought that he'd meant to do it. Like, you can imagine how much that would hurt a person. It's very just terrible, and he dies a hero. He dies a soldier, you know? Like, everybody was trying to get him for being an unconventional cop. Ends justify the means, and he just, like, died a hero, doing what he needed to do. And also passing on, like, this knowledge that, like, don't do what I did, because it always catches up to you, even if it's for good reasons. So yeah, 9.6 out of 10. It's rare I ever watch a movie that's this good. And I'm just absolutely in love with this, and it's one of my favorite movies. So, go watch it again. Why not? Why not? Alright, that's been me. I'll put a little, maybe a video or a picture of my dog right after I sign out, but that's been me, Sussy Boy. Sussy Boy out.